The topic we are continuing today in life processes is the third process, that is transportation. Now, before we get into detail as to how transportation occurs in humans or in plants, we first need to know the need of transportation. Now, as explained earlier, digestion occurs, respiration occurs. Now, both these processes require movement of substances or molecules. For example, digested food needs to move from intestine to different parts of the body for their usage, for their assimilation. Similarly, oxygen from lungs needs to move to throughout the body for energy requirement, or carbon dioxide which is produced as a result of respiration needs to move out of the body. Similarly, the different waste products which are produced as a result of different metabolic processes need to be removed from the body, because as you already know that these metabolic waste are toxic in nature, and being toxic they can harm the individual organism. So, we require a system which involves the movement of these substances useful from the place of origin to different parts of the body, and harmful from different parts of the body to the part which will ultimately eliminate them from the body. First, we get into the human circulatory system. Now, the human circulatory system primarily consists of an organ known by the name of heart. The organ which works continuously in an individual since its inception, a few weeks after its inception to till death. Heart starts working within the first few weeks of pregnancy inside the mother's womb and continues till the last breath of the individual. Apart from heart, the transportation in humans also consists of certain blood vessels known by the name of arteries, veins, and capillaries. We'll be dealing with each one of them individually. And why are they important is because these blood vessels transport blood. Now, what is blood? Blood is a tissue, and being fluid in nature, and because it is connecting different parts of the body, it is a fluid connective tissue, and it is responsible for movement, or rather transportation of nutrients, oxygen, metabolic waste like carbon dioxide from one part of the body to the other, from where it is being, where a useful substance is being produced or taken in, to where it needs to be used, or where a metabolic waste is being generated, to the point from where it will be eliminated from the body. Now, there are four main components of this blood. Blood in itself is made up of a fluid known by the name plasma. This plasma, being fluid in nature, it helps in transportation of different substances like hormones and proteins, nutrients, yellow in color, and it makes up about 55% of total blood volume. Apart from plasma, blood also consists of what are known in short as RBCs, the red blood cells or the red blood corpuscles. These RBCs contain a red colored pigment known as hemoglobin, and it is these RBCs which give the blood its characteristic red color. The hemoglobin present in these RBCs has great affinity towards oxygen, and therefore it is the hemoglobin and ultimately the complete red blood cell which is responsible for the movement of oxygen from the alveoli inside the lungs to different parts of the body. RBCs overall make up between 40 to 45% of the total blood volume. Then we have the third components, the WBCs, the white blood cells or white blood corpuscles or leukocyte. Now, RBCs are erythrocyte. WBCs are leukocytes. Erythros meaning red, cyte meaning cell. Similarly, leuco meaning colorless or white, and cyte meaning cell. So WBCs, they are colorless or white, and they make up just less than 1% of the total blood volume. Overall, WBCs are responsible for protection of the body. They are the part of the body's immune system. They help in fighting against infection causing microbes, and they are themselves are of 5 different types in detail to be taken up later on. The last component of blood are the platelets. आपने कई बार घर में सुना होगा प्लेटें कम हो गई. Now there are no plates inside our blood. The actual term is platelets, but people find it easier for a layman to just use the term plate. So platelet, their main role is in clotting of blood. So the 3 living components of the blood, they are responsible for 3 different functions. RBCs, oxygen transportation. WBCs, fighting infections. Platelets, clotting of blood. Now why blood clotting is important? So that the blood stops flowing outside our body if there is any cut or wound or injury. Overall, the functions of blood, now we can say, apart from these 3 functions, that is transportation of oxygen, protection against infection, blood clotting, certain other functions of blood are the function of plasma, that is transportation of nutrients. Then one major function of the blood is to maintain the body temperature. As you are aware, we are homeothermal or warm blooded animals, that is we are able to maintain our body temperature. हमारा body temperature बाहर ठंड या गर्मी होने से ठंडा या गर्म नहीं होता. We are homeothermal, homeo meaning same, thermo meaning temperature. तो हम अपनी बॉडी का टेम्परेचर अराउंड 37 डिग्री सेंटीग्रेड हमेशा मेंटेन कर पाते हैं, एंड दैट इज़ ड्यू टू ब्लड. It also helps in maintaining the pH of our body, slightly alkaline in nature, maintains the fluid volume within the body, that is अगर किसी organ में fluid मेनली वाटर कम हो रहा है तो ब्लड अपना वाटर वहाँ पे दे देता है, ज़्यादा हो रहा है तो ब्लड उसको एक्सेप्ट कर लेता है. Prevents loss of blood by clotting, prevention of infection by fighting against infection, that is immunity. So these are overall the functions of the blood. Now we move on to the first, or rather the organ of the circulatory system, the heart. Now you must have heard the term the main component, the major part. And if you look at the location of the heart, it is also located right towards the center of our torso, in the center of our upper chest cavity, and the size of the human heart is the size of our fist. हमारी मुट्ठी के बराबर हमारा heart होता है. It is a muscular organ that is composed of muscles. And why is it muscular? Because it is constantly involved in contraction and relaxation. तो contraction relaxation हो रहा है, किस लिए हो रहा है? ताकि इसके जो chambers हैं वो blood को push कर सकें या अपने अंदर ले सकें. push होके blood कहाँ जाएगा? या तो हमारे lungs में जाएगा जहाँ पे गैसेस का एक्सचेंज होगा, कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड और ऑक्सीजन का, या ब्लड हमारे पूरे पार्ट ऑफ द बॉडी में जाएगा ताकि सब्सटेंसेस स्पेशली ऑक्सीजन कैन बी डिलीवर्ड. ओवरऑल ह्यूमन हार्ट इज मेड अप ऑफ 4 चेम्बर्स. एज अगेंस्ट लोअर एनिमल्स वेयर द नंबर ऑफ चेम्बर्स इज लेस, mammals have 4-chambered heart, and these 4 chambers actually help in preventing the mixing of blood. Deoxygenated, जिसको हम layman term में impure बोल देते हैं, actually it is deoxygenated blood. D meaning removed, जहाँ पे ऑक्सीजन ख़त्म हो गई है, ऐसे ब्लड को ऑक्सीजनेटेड ब्लड के साथ मिक्स नहीं होने देता. ये 4 चेम्बर्स इसी में हेल्प करते हैं. हाउ? दैट we are taking up now. Overall, our heart is composed of 4 chambers. Now this is a rough sketch. जो अपर वाले होते हैं वो कहलाते हैं एट्रिया या ऑरिकल्स. जो नीचे वाले 2 चेम्बर्स हैं दे आर नोन एज वेंट्रिकल्स. एट्रिया और ऑरिकल्स, इनका काम है ब्लड को रिसीव करना. वेंट्रिकल्स का काम है ब्लड को बाहर देना. तो एट्रिया में, नाउ इफ आई फेस यू, दिस इज माय राइट हैंड, दिस इज द राइट एट्रियम, दिस इज द लेफ्ट एट्रियम, दिस इज द राइट ventricle, and this is the left ventricle. Now the left portion of the heart is associated with oxygenated blood. The right portion of the heart is associated with deoxygenated blood. तो जो impure in layman's terms या जो पूरी बॉडी से कलेक्ट करा हुआ ब्लड है, द ब्लड विच लैक्स ऑक्सीजन एंड इज रिच इन कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड, वो एट्रिया राइट और वेंट्रिकल राइट में आता है. ऑक्सीजनेटेड ब्लड लेफ्ट एट्रियम और लेफ्ट वेंट्रिकल में आता है. तो अब यहाँ पर होता क्या है? होता ये है कि हमारा जो लेफ्ट एट्रियम है, पहले स्टेप में दिस विल रिलैक्स, एंड व्हेन इट रिलैक्सेस, रिलैक्स का मतलब इसका साइज बड़ा हो गया. व्हेन इट विल रिलैक्स, इट विल रिजल्ट इन लो प्रेशर, एंड बिकॉज ऑफ दैट लो प्रेशर, pulmonary vein, pulmonary something associated with lungs, pulmonary vein brings oxygenated blood from the lungs, और इसके रिलैक्स होने की वजह से, इसका लो प्रेशर होने की वजह से oxygenated blood enters, oxygen rich blood enters the left atrium. Once blood has entered, oxygenated blood has entered and the left atrium gets filled, then it will contract. Once it contracts, a high pressure is created in the left atrium, and because of that high pressure, blood through mitral valve also known as the tricuspid valve enters from the left atrium to the left ventricle. In the third step, the left ventricle will contract. Now, as the blood was entering here, it was in relaxed state, so obviously low pressure, this was contracting, high pressure, so blood has moved from left atrium to left ventricle. Now this will contract. Because it contracts, high pressure is created within the left ventricle and the blood moves out through aorta, and which is the main artery, and from aorta, through aorta to different parts of the body, it is then sent out by different arteries. This was the first step, or rather the first stage, how oxygenated blood moves in and out of the heart. अब जब ये oxygenated blood पूरी body में जाएगा, then the oxygen and the nutrients from the blood will be utilized by different organs. They'll carry out the metabolic processes, and the metabolic waste, including carbon dioxide, will be collected by the blood, and that deoxygenated blood now moves towards the heart. Now in the next step, the right atrium will relax, and when it relaxes, CO2 rich blood enters into the right atrium through superior and inferior vena cava. Now these vena cava are known as superior and inferior just based on their position. Superior ऊपर की तरफ से आती है, हार्ट के ऊपर वाले ऑर्गन से ब्लड लाती है, inferior नीचे वाले ऑर्गन से ब्लड लाती, इसलिए इनका नाम superior और inferior है. There is nothing superior or inferior in their function. So superior and inferior vena cava bring the blood when the right atrium relaxes inside it. Once it has relaxed, then it will contract, and when it contracts, the right ventricle is in relaxed state, and therefore carbon dioxide rich blood moves from right atrium to right ventricle through the tricuspid valve. It has entered into right ventricle. After this, the right ventricle contracts. Once it contracts, then the blood, because of high pressure inside the right ventricle, this deoxygenated blood is forced to move into the pulmonary artery. Pulmonary, again, anything associated with lung. And this pulmonary artery takes the deoxygenated blood towards the lungs. Now, coming on to the next term, that is artery and vein. अब आर्टरी और वेन के बारे में एक बहुत बड़ा मिसकंसेप्शन है हमारे माइंड में, दैट इज आर्टरीज कैरी ऑक्सीजनेटेड ब्लड बट वेन्स कैरी डीऑक्सीजनेटेड ब्लड. लेकिन अभी जैसा आपने देखा, आर्टरी इज कैरिंग, पल्मोनरी आर्टरी इज कैरिंग deoxygenated blood and pulmonary vein is bringing in ऑक्सीजनेटेड ब्लड. सो बेसिकली ये जो टर्म आर्टरी और वेन है, आर्टरी विल कैरी ब्लड अवे फ्रॉम हार्ट, while vein carries blood towards heart. तो हमें बस ये याद रखना है, if it is an artery it is carrying blood away from heart, if it is a vein it is bringing blood towards heart. So now if you look at it, right ventricle जिसमें deoxygenated blood था, its blood is, the deoxygenated blood is being carried to the lungs. So it is going away from heart. Therefore, the artery is the term which needs to be used here. And since it is going to lung, so we use the term pulmonary artery. Similarly, in left atrium, oxygen-rich blood is moving in through pulmonary vein. And in fact, it is only the pulmonary artery and the pulmonary vein which carry deoxygenated and oxygenated blood respectively. Rest all other arteries carry oxygenated blood, rest all other veins carry deoxygenated blood. In fact, this is an examination question. Which is the only vein to carry oxygenated blood and which is the only artery to carry deoxygenated blood? Answers: pulmonary vein and pulmonary artery. Why? Because carrying blood away from heart or carrying blood towards heart. Now if you look overall over here, first deoxygenated blood comes into right atrium, then right ventricle, then it goes to lungs, from lungs to left auricle, and from left auricle to left ventricle, and then back to different parts of the body. So before blood goes to different parts of the body, it is passing through our heart 2 times. And therefore, the circulation in humans is referred to as double circulation. So what is double circulation? The movement of same blood through the heart twice. Double is कोई भी चीज़ 2 बार होना, तो 2 बार कैसे हो रहा है? सेम ब्लड हार्ट में 2 बार मूव करता है, तब वो बॉडी में डिस्ट्रीब्यूट होता है. एंड देयरफॉर वी यूज द टर्म डबल सर्कुलेशन. नाउ इफ यू लुक ओवर हियर, एज कंपेयर टू ऑरिकल्स और एट्रिया, द वॉल्स ऑफ वेंट्रिकल आर मोर थिक. रीजन बहुत सिंपल है. ऑरिकल्स या एट्रिया को अपना ब्लड वेंट्रिकल्स में डालना है, एक लार्ज चेम्बर से दूसरे लार्ज चेम्बर में जाना है, तो उनके वॉल्स अगर उतने मोटे नहीं भी हैं, इफ द वॉल्स आर नॉट थिक, देन ऑल्सो द मूवमेंट ऑफ ब्लड कैन अकर. बट वेंट्रिकल्स, देयर वॉल्स आर वेरी थिक. रीजन इज सिंपल. फ्रॉम अ लार्ज चेम्बर, now the blood has moved inside a tubular structure. So for that reason, the pressure applied by ventricles should be very high as compared to the pressure being applied by arteries. And therefore ventricles tend to have thicker walls as compared to atria. Now, there are valves present between the 2 auricles and ventricles. Between right auricle and right ventricle, we have the tricuspid valve. Between the left atrium and left ventricle, we have the bicuspid or mitral valve. Cusp means anything C-shaped. Bicuspid, bi meaning 2, so 2 cusp. Tricuspid, tri meaning 3, so 3 cusp. So it's basic. And valves, what they do is they prevent backflow of blood. They allow the blood to go only in one direction. Just like you have hinges in your doors, तो उन hinges की वजह से आप डोर को एक ही तरफ ओपन और क्लोज कर पाते हो. You cannot take it to 360 डिग्री. बाहर उससे नहीं जाएगा. क्यों नहीं जाएगा? क्योंकि वहाँ पे डोर का फ्रेम आ जाता है. That prevents further flow of further movement of the door. उसी तरह ये वैल्व्स होते हैं. वैल्व एक ही तरफ खुलते हैं, मूवमेंट होने देते हैं ब्लड का, बंद हो जाते हैं. तो इधर से वापस नहीं जा सकता, सिर्फ इधर से इधर आएगा, इधर से वापस नहीं जाएगा. Now, as compared to human heart, where there is no mixing of blood, the deoxygenated and oxygenated blood, in lower vertebrates there is mixing of blood. Fishes have two-chambered heart, single auricle, single ventricle. So from all the body, blood is collected in auricle. From auricle it goes to ventricle. From ventricle it goes to gills, where there is exchange of gases, oxygenated and deoxygenated. Oxygen is given out. Oxygen is taken in by the blood. Carbon dioxide is given out. This happens in the gills, and from the gills only the blood moves throughout the body. But in case of humans, it is not like that. So fishes show single circulation. Humans show double circulation. Double circulation is also seen in reptiles and amphibians, but they have three-chambered heart. Three-chambered, they have two auricles and one ventricle. So here deoxygenated blood is there, here oxygenated blood is there. It moves to the ventricle. From ventricle it will go to the heart, and from heart then to the other auricle, from there back to ventricle. So what happens here in ventricle, there is mixing of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. तो इनमें क्या फ्लो है? इनमें फ्लो है बॉडी, फ्रॉम बॉडी टू एट्रिया, atrium to ventricle, ventricle to lungs, lungs to the other atrium, from other atrium back to ventricle, and from ventricle to different parts of the body. तो अब इस ventricle में there is mixing of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. तो यहाँ पे ऑक्सीजन का परसेंटेज कम हो जाता है, और put in other words, there is lesser amount of oxygen present in the ventricular blood, which is then circulated in the body. And due to this reason, these animals are poikilothermal, that is, they are unable to maintain their body temperature. और बॉडी टेम्परेचर मेंटेन ना कर पाने की वजह से दे आर कोल्ड ब्लडेड. दे आर कॉल्ड कोल्ड ब्लडेड और पोइकिलोथर्मल. बॉडी टेम्परेचर, जैसे अभी पहले भी बात हुई थी, इट इज़ बेसिकली द फंक्शन ऑफ ब्लड. अब ब्लड में ही व्हेन देयर इज मिक्सिंग ऑफ ऑक्सीजनेटेड एंड डीऑक्सीजनेटेड ऑक्सीजन एंड कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड, तो उतना ज़्यादा ऑक्सीजन बॉडी के अलग अलग पार्ट्स को नहीं मिल पाता है एनर्जी प्रोडक्शन के लिए. Energy production is less, so they are cold-blooded. Birds, they also have four-chambered heart like mammals, like humans. And because of this total separation, birds and mammals are warm-blooded. Now moving on to blood vessels, as said just now, little bit before. Arteries, they carry blood away from heart. Brains carry blood towards heart. But that is a big overall picture. But arteries cannot carry blood to each and every single part of the body. Veins can't collect blood from each and every single part of the body. So these arteries, they are further getting branched to form arterioles. Arterioles meaning small arteries. From these arterioles, capillaries are formed, and the walls of capillaries are just single cell thick like in alveoli, surrounding the alveoli. तो वहाँ पे ऑक्सीजन का exchange with the surrounding tissue becomes easy. Now these capillaries, they join together and they form venules, that is small veins. Small many veins, they join together and they form veins. तो ओवरऑल सर्कुलेशन हमारे बॉडी में क्या हुआ? हार्ट से आर्टरीज, आर्टरी से आर्टेरियोल्स, आर्टेरियोल से कैपिलरीज, कैपिलरी से वेन्यूल्स, वेन्यूल से वेन्स, वेन्स से वापस हार्ट. और यहाँ पर हार्ट से फिर आर्टरी के थ्रू लंग्स में और वेन के थ्रू हार्ट में. हो गया ना डबल सर्कुलेशन. एक बार ये सर्कुलेशन है, एक बार दूसरा सर्कुलेशन. दैट इज व्हाई डबल सर्कुलेशन. नाउ if we compare arteries, veins and capillaries, तो अगर हम उनका एक कंपैरिजन करते हैं तो फंक्शन देखें. आर्टरी कैरी ब्लड अवे फ्रॉम हार्ट, वेन्स ब्रिंग ब्लड टूवर्ड्स हार्ट, एंड कैपिलरीज देयर फंक्शन इज एक्चुअल एक्सचेंज ऑफ सब्सटेंसेस विद द सराउंडिंग टिश्यू. ये आर्टरी और वेन नहीं करते हैं, ये कैपिलरीज के थ्रू होता है एक्सचेंज सब्सटेंसेस का. चाहे कैपिलरीज के अंदर वाले ब्लड से ऑक्सीजन सराउंडिंग टिश्यू में जाए या सराउंडिंग टिश्यू से कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड कलेक्ट होके कैपिलरी के अंदर आए. प्रेशर इन केस ऑफ आर्टरीज इज वेरी हाई, एंड दैट हाई प्रेशर इज ड्यू टू द हाई प्रेशर जो कि हमारे लेफ्ट वेंट्रिकल से स्टार्ट होता है. वेन्स दे हैव लो प्रेशर बिकॉज ब्लड इज फ्लोइंग पैसिवली थ्रू देम, एंड कैपिलरीज दे ऑल्सो हैव लो प्रेशर. द ल्यूमन, the part of the lumen of arteries is very thin. Of veins it is very wide. Capillaries, they are very narrow because they themselves are just one single cell thick, so they are not very wide. Overall, the walls of arteries are thick, the walls of veins are thin, and that is why they are able to maintain high pressure and veins have low pressure. Now, because of this high pressure, because veins have low pressure, but still blood needs to move. It needs to move against gravity also. For example, blood moving from your legs towards your heart against gravity. तो अब ये move कैसे करेगा? प्रेशर है नहीं. हाई प्रेशर है तो आर्टरीज के थ्रू हमारे हार्ट से हमारे हेड तक ब्लड चला जाता है अगेंस्ट ग्रेविटी. लेकिन हमारे पैरों से हमारे हार्ट तक अगेंस्ट ग्रेविटी आने में प्रॉब्लम होगी, एंड दैट इज़ वाई वेन्स कंटेन valves. These valves prevent backflow of blood. ब्लड को आगे तो जाने देता है, पीछे वापस नहीं आने देता है. Just like inside the heart. Now, when we were discussing overall the functions of blood, one of the function mentioned was clotting of blood. अब ये clotting of blood क्या है? So, whenever there is any damage to the blood vessel, whether it is an artery or a vein, the blood will start moving out. It will continue to move out till अ मेश लाइक स्ट्रक्चर वहाँ पे कुछ उसको रोकने का ना बने, और वो रोकने का साधन होता है ब्लड क्लॉट. What happens? The third cellular component, that is the platelets, they just come together, and with the help of calcium ions and certain chemicals like thrombin, prothrombin, fibrinogen, they form a network over that place जहाँ से blood ooze out हो रहा है, and in that mesh like structure large number of RBCs get entangled, and then we get a blood clot. तो कभी भी आपके खून बहा होगा तो आपने देखा होगा खून रुकने के वक्त वहाँ पे अगर आपके हाथ से खून बह रहा है तो वहाँ पे एक हार्ड रेडिश स्ट्रक्चर बन जाता है. वो रेड क्यों है? क्योंकि वहाँ पे आरबीसी ट्रैप हुए हैं, लेकिन आरबीसी ट्रैप हुए हैं बिकॉज ऑफ द हेल्प ऑफ द प्लेटलेट्स. फाइबर लाइक स्ट्रक्चर बना वहाँ पे, पहला फाइबर्स ने एक नेटवर्क बनाया, इस नेटवर्क में आरबीसीज फंस गए तो वो रेड लगता है. धीरे धीरे वो आरबीसीज they die, and when they die that clot becomes darker in color. तो आपके जो चोट लगी होती है वो पहले रेड होती है, फिर वो धीरे धीरे ब्राउनिश डार्क हो जाती है, ब्लैकिश हो जाती है, और उसके बाद इंटरनल हीलिंग भी शुरू हो जाता है. धीरे धीरे दैट पार्ट कम्स अप, it is thrown out, and ultimately that injury is repaired. Apart from blood, we have another tissue fluid also which helps in transportation of substances known as the lymph. तो हमारे बॉडी में ट्रांसपोर्टेशन के लिए ब्लड के साथ साथ लिम्फ भी प्रेजेंट होता है. ना लिम्फ को हम कहते हैं टिश्यू फ्लूइड. Now capillaries, when they are responsible, as you already know by now, that they are responsible for exchange of substances with the surrounding tissue. लेकिन सराउंडिंग टिश्यू के साथ साथ जो सेल्स के बीच के इंटरसेल्यूलर स्पेसेस होते हैं, some of the plasma proteins, some WBCs, they get into those intercellular spaces also, and overall they form the lymph. So lymph overall, if you look at its composition, it is quite similar to plasma, but the amount of proteins in plasma is more than in lymph. Now what this lymph does is it moves through the lymph vessels inside the body, and it pours its contents into the capillaries. The capillaries they are joined to the lymph vessels, and then these capillaries together they form the venules, then the veins, and ultimately the complete substance returns back to the heart. तो हमारे ब्लड से कुछ भी बाहर जाता है वो लिम्फ में चला जाता है, और लिम्फ से वो वापस ब्लड में आ जाता है. The other function of lymph is to carry the digested fats. Blood is responsible for transportation of digested carbohydrates and proteins, but lymph is responsible for transportation of fats. Now moving on to transportation in plants. In case of plants also, minerals and water needs to move from roots to the upper parts of the plant, especially leaves, where this water will be utilized to perform photosynthesis. And also the end product of photosynthesis, glucose, or simply we use the term fluid over here, food. That food needs to move to different parts of the body, wherever it needs to be utilized or stored or used in different ways. But plants energy requirements are less as compared to animals. Main reason being plants are static, वो एक जगह पे रहते हैं तो उनको अपना एनर्जी ज़्यादा खर्च नहीं करनी. They show no locomotion, so less energy is required. Secondly, main plant body is majorly composed of dead tissue, sclerenchymatous tissue. Because of this dead tissue, again जब overall body में dead tissue ज़्यादा है as compared to living tissue, and energy is required only by living tissue, so obviously energy requirements of plants become less, and therefore transportation system overall is slower in plants as compared to animals. The two major transportation vessels in plants are xylem and phloem. Xylem conducts water, phloem conducts the food products of photosynthesis throughout the body. Now many times children get confused, बच्चों को याद नहीं रहता कि कौन सा किसके लिए. Very simple. Phloem, when you speak it seems as if you are saying fur, and food fur. So that F sound, phloem food. Similarly xylem X and water Y, W. W and X are closer in the alphabet. So water, xylem, and phloem food. Now, overall, the transportation of water requires movement from the roots to the different parts of the plant. In the roots, stem and leaves, we have the two components of xylem, that is tracheids and vessels. They all are interconnected. तो root के जो tracheids और vessels हैं वो stem और leaf के tracheids और vessels से connected होते हैं. जैसे blood vessels हमारे body में होते हैं arteries, फिर arterioles, फिर capillaries, वैसे ही tracheids जो हैं roots के, stem के और leaves के interconnected होंगे. तो एक and it is mainly the tracheids and vessels of xylem which are responsible for conduction of water. जो दो और बचे हुए components हैं, that is xylem fibers and parenchyma, they are helping in nature. They are not responsible for main conduction. Now root cells, they are in direct contact with the soil. They take in ions from the surrounding soil water through active transport, that is transportation against concentration gradient, and this leads to concentration difference between roots and stem, and therefore water gets taken in by roots by the simple process of osmosis. पहले ions आ गए अंदर, तो roots में जो water है उसमें dissolved जब ions हो गए तो ओवरऑल रूट के में जो वाटर है वहाँ पे वाटर का कंसंट्रेशन कम हो गया एज कंपेयर टू आउटसाइड द रूट्स विद इन द सॉइल. सो वाटर मॉलिक्यूल्स मूव फ्रॉम देयर हायर कंसंट्रेशन दैट इज सॉइल टू द लोअर कंसंट्रेशन दैट इज द रूट सेल्स वाया सेमी परमिएबल मेम्ब्रेन ऑफ द रूट सेल्स. नाउ दिस मूवमेंट causes a movement of the water in the root xylem, and this creates a column of water which rises upwards, also known as capillary action. ऊपर से हमारे plants के leaves में स्पेशली ट्रांसपिरेशन चल रहा है, दैट इज़ लॉस ऑफ वाटर. तो ऊपर एक लो प्रेशर है, नीचे पानी ज़्यादा है, हाई प्रेशर है, ऑब्वियसली वाटर विल मूव फ्रॉम हायर टू लोअर प्रेशर. तो वाटर मूव्स फ्रॉम डाउन टू अप अगेंस्ट ग्रेविटी. Now, transpiration which occurs in the leaves, it has two main functions. One is it causes a suction pressure that leads to upward movement of water. Second is it regulates the temperature of the plant. क्योंकि plants का energy requirement कम है, plants are not directly involved in such energy processes wherein their body temperature can be maintained. So actually the transpiration helps them maintain their temperature. Food is transported through phloem, and the process of transportation of food is known as translocation. The substances which are produced by the leaves during photosynthesis, they move through phloem. Phloem is also responsible for conduction of different amino acids and different other substances which are being synthesized in different metabolic processes within the plant. Transportation of food, that is translocation, occurs in sieve tubes with the help of companion cells of phloem, and unlike xylem, wherein the movement of water is only against gravity, that is from root to the upward part of the plant, phloem translocates food in both upward as well as downward direction. तो phloem से food leaf से roots में भी जाएगा, और leaf से उस leaf के ऊपर वाला जो part है जहाँ पे maybe a new leaf is coming up which requires food, maybe a new flower is being produced which requires food and energy, तो वो phloem जो है वो दोनों तरफ food का translocation करता है. Now mainly the food which is transported by phloem is in the form of sucrose. अब आपके माइंड में आएगा, जब हम न्यूट्रिशन की बात कर रहे थे तब हमने कहा था इट इज़ ग्लूकोज विच इज़ बीइंग प्रोड्यूस्ड बाय फोटोसिंथेसिस, एंड इट इज़ अ कॉम्प्लेक्स कार्बोहाइड्रेट दैट इज़ द स्टार्च विच इज़ गेटिंग स्टोर्ड. तो अब ये सुक्रोज कहाँ से आ गया? सुक्रोज का ट्रांसपोर्टेशन क्यों हो रहा है? द आंसर इज ग्लूकोज, ऑल्दो इट इज़ द एंड प्रोडक्ट, it is the first product of photosynthesis, but this glucose being highly reactive, it cannot move easily through phloem. Starch cannot move because starch is insoluble in water. In fact, starch will be formed in that part only where starch is getting stored. तो हमको एक ऐसा फॉर्म चाहिए शुगर का, carbohydrates का, which is soluble in water and it is less reactive, and that is sucrose, a disaccharide, that is two simple molecules joined together, and the pressure moves the material in phloem to tissues, again towards where there is low pressure of that substance. तो जहाँ पे सुक्रोज का कॉन्सेंट्रेशन ज़्यादा है वहाँ पे उसका प्रेशर हाई हो जाएगा, जहाँ पे सुक्रोज का कंसंट्रेशन कम है, वेदर इट इज़ द रूट्स और द अपर पार्ट अबव द लीफ, जहाँ पे सुक्रोज का कंसंट्रेशन कम है, sucrose will move in that particular direction. And that brings us to the end of today's class, that is conduction of substances.